Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing in this rainy weather? Welcome to Universal Furniture. I'm Kayla Miller. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Universal. For you that are not familiar with Universal, we pride ourselves in being a whole home resource for our trade members. We have a wonderful trade program. That's if you're interested in joining, you can look at our website in the top right-hand corner, and it's universal to the trade. We offer no minimums, so there's no minimums in your orders. Free shipping as well as exclusive pricing. This market, we have two new collections. We have Birch Haven, which is located on floor 2, as well as an addition to our modern collection on floor 3. We have tons of new upholstery that's sprinkled throughout our showroom, and the majority of it located here on floor 1 in our area called living room. We also have a dedicated designer's lounge that's located out in the lobby. So if you have time today, definitely stop in there. And now I'm going to turn it over to Chris and Debbie. If everybody wants to help me, give them a warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you, Kayla, for that introduction. And we want to also thank Universal Furniture for having us. So this is my counterpart, Chris Meeken from Black Tie Group.
Nice to meet everyone.
And today we're going to talk about how to work with a contractor who sees your vision. So how many of you designers work with contractors already? A lot. Okay. So you're going to relate to a lot of this stuff. We're going to discuss the good, the bad, and how to make it better when you're working with a contractor.
Yeah, and feel free to, if you have questions or experiences throughout the talk, you can interject and we can kind of field those as we go. We can discuss our process and what has worked, and again, the pitfalls with some of those things if you don't communicate clearly. But yeah, we can kind of get into it.
Yeah, there you go.
So in the beginning, I don't know how you're sourcing contractors that you want to work with, if you already have a pre-existing relationship with some of them, or if you're trying to get into a new market. Where we are at regionally in New Hampshire, New England area, we are focused around basically Lake Winnipesaukee. We have a really strong home builders group up there. So you could get to one of those events or something, International Builder Show, potentially you could bump into some other contractors in your area or look for them on socials. Maybe there's a contractor you're seeking out in your market and you want to connect with them, kind of see what they have going on with their current projects.
Yeah, and so I do a lot of networking events, and it's fun to get invited to a dinner or a place where you would normally think you wouldn't meet a contractor. So it might even be at a restaurant. So always have your business cards there, if not your Instagram QR code. And then specifically word of mouth. That's how Chris and I met. We bought a 1918 post and beam in Sandwich, New Hampshire, and I asked the plumber for a referral up there because I wasn't familiar with the contractors up there, and he recommended Chris, and that project was, it needed a lot of work, and it was basically a 3-season with no insulation, plumbing coming through the ceiling and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to interview or meet with your contractor first before you decide, hey, I have a project that, can you come out and estimate for me? It's better to meet with them, see if your values and goals align, because not only that, when we have, know your market, for us it's the New Hampshire Lakes region, which I'm learning more about because it's an hour 10 minutes from my primary residence, and it's very interesting. So your market might have a little bit of a clicky network, just like some other professions do. So again, it's beneficial to you to have a conversation with contractors, or actually try to experience joining your builders association and see if there's a contractor or builder there that you might want to work with, just through conversation. And even through us, lately, social media on Instagram, I'm not only getting clients from that, but I'm also getting builders that want to work with me, or they're reaching out and they want to have coffee, or at a networking event for one of our cabinet companies that they had, it was called the Main Experience. There were only 50 people, interior designers, architects, and builders that went there, but it was a networking event, which was a great private boutique-y kind of event where there were builders there that you sat at the table with and you had conversations with. So there's all different avenues to meet designers, contractors, even architects that you might want to work with.
So some of the initial questions you can ask, and these are some pitfalls, red flags, or things that you can bump into. If you as a designer already have a client and you're bringing yourself and the client to the contractor, there are some conversations that need to happen if you want that to go smoothly. If we get brought in late and we don't have a working relationship with you, it can be tough and a little bit clunky on the front side without some strong communication. I'm currently in the middle of one of those where I got thrown into the mix and I don't have a relationship with the interior designer, and it has been, a little bit awkward to move through the pieces. I don't have all the information that I want ahead of time, and sometimes it slows up my production schedule, and that's where it gets a little bit wonky. The other option you can do is, Debbie and I have done this on a couple of projects where I have a pre-existing client or have a new meeting with a client, and it seems like it'll be a good fit to have an interior designer with me. So I'll reach out to her and kind of lay the groundwork with the client. Hey, I want to bring this person in, and then we'll sit down and have that initial meeting. I call it our first date with the client, and see how that goes. Because yes, they're interviewing me, but I'm also interviewing them to see if I want to work with them. If this project's a 1.5 years long, I want to make sure that we can communicate and work through that process well. If I start to see red flags early, I'm probably going to figure out a way to not do that project. One of the big questions, and what I've heard from your side of the fence with interior designers, is who's in charge? So who's running this project? I think you have to have that conversation early, and it really depends on how you want that to go. I think if the groundwork's laid well, it can go really smooth. Again, if you're trying to lead it and I'm trying to lead it, then things can get muddled. Personally, if as long as the relationship is well and I have all the information, it might make more sense just to have us manage the project as far as trades and timelines go. I know you've had some projects that you've managed and had to do all the contractors as well.
Yeah, so, you really need to set the stage, not only, with your client, but also with your builder contractor, because if you're part of a team, if you've been brought on, I'm going to speak from the designer point of view, if you've been brought on to a project that you're a part of the team, you've been brought on to that project by your client, and you're working for the client, but there's already an existing team, that could be the architect, that could be the builder, that could be the project manager, and they're looking at you like, I'm gonna say, who the hell is this person coming in? We don't know her, we've never worked with her before. So sometimes it gets a little sticky, and you have to kind of hold your ground as the designer, because it's your vision and you're trying to relate your client's vision as well. So sometimes the contractors don't see that, even with construction plans and construction drawings. It's like you might be set. How many of you know how to read construction drawings? Okay, so a lot of designers don't know how to read construction drawings. So if you don't catch something that's on the plan that the architect did, and then you have to go back to the architect or even have a meeting with your client, there could be a little bit of, I'm going to say, red tape going on there, because again, it comes back to who's control, who's in charge of the project. So you need to know like where your place is, or stay in your line, or are you going to color outside the lines, right? So it's all about who's managing the project. Is the project management team going to manage it? The project Chris was talking about, I was actually, it was a project management team that was a commercial building company, not residential. And because the clients knew them, they thought they could build them their 10,000 square foot beach house and didn't realize that everything we were picking out for this project was not commercial grade, and it was all custom, from the tiles to everything that went into that project. So something like that, you have to hold your ground, because, we had a contractor, the tile guy, just decided he didn't want to do it because the tile was too intense. So then, they're like, can you bring your tile guy on? I'm like, my tile installer is already on another job. So, there's a conversation with the head of the project management company and myself at 7:30 in the morning when he calls and he says, I'm just going to send my commercial guy from Rhode Island up there. I was like, you are not sending the commercial installer up there from Rhode Island. I said, this is a residential project. This is not a commercial project. And there was hand-painted tiles and everything. So that delayed the project itself. But sometimes you have to step out of the box and really explain to your team, what is happening here. And you'll have to take control as the designer when everyone else thinks, that they're in control. And then the architect doesn't design an HVAC system to go in the house. And all the furniture's been ordered, and the kitchen cabinets are about to be ordered, and the foreman finds this out, and now we have to put a big chase in the middle of the entryway so you can't see the water when you walk through the front door. And the client, we were all like, oh my God, they are going to be so mad, of which they were. So who takes responsibility for that? So I think you really need to identify whose responsibility it is for what part of the project, or are you as the designer, running the project. So that's really important. And then we don't go, we separate contracts. Like Chris is his own company, I'm my own company. We never intermingle.
Yeah, that seems to work best, and I think for everybody to make their margin as well. I go under contract for the construction side of it, and then you guys would go under contract for the interior design side. I'm not trying to make margin on your accessories, and then I will make my margin on my stuff. So that we're going to get into that right now. Great segue.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Who's providing the product? Who's making the markup and the profit on what? Who's responsible for ordering? Who's responsible for the warranty and follow-up on damages? Debbie and I were talking about this the other day. I also have an electrical division. So when we bid our projects, I carry an electrical line for that. I don't know if the client's going to order a $10,000 light fixture or a Lowe's light fixture. So we don't carry any allowances for specialty lighting. So yes, if you wanted to carry on your contract, we would have that conversation. Hey, I'm going to supply all the ornamental light fixtures. We'll carry the 4-inch wafers and the basic switching and stuff like that. That is the conversation. Who wants to have this stuff? The other piece is like plumbing, if we're getting, roll, or you're doing Brizo or whatever that is. If you buy that product and then my trade installs it, the plumber or, somebody, HVAC guy, whatever that is, if there's a problem, tile's already installed, the valve fails. Now, if I carried that and my plumber installed it, then I go to the plumber and say, hey, warranty this piece, cover the labor, cover all of it. If you provided that valve, then I'm going to have to kind of backpedal and say, no, that's on you. You're going to have to figure out how to warranty that, pay the labor to fix it, and do that. But if you have that conversation up front, we'd already know that.
Right, and I think as far as that goes, like we as designers, we all want to make a profit on the product, right, that we're selling. And that's kind of why we're here, down at Market. Excuse me. And I think it's really important to have that conversation. And like you said, for projects that Chris and I have worked on together, I ordered all my lighting except for the wafer lights. Just like the initial necessities that are needed, but all the lighting. That's a big thing for me, is the lighting. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I think that really sets the stage for the character of the house as well. And so that's one thing. always adamant about the lighting, and again, back to another situation with the 10,000 square foot home, is I was brought on to be the designer, the liaison between the client and the contractors. So that meant the electrician was going to order all the lighting. The plumber was ordering all the plumbing. I chose everything, but that means I wasn't getting any, profit markup off of that product. However, everything I spec'd out, and we'll get into the FF&E schedule, but everything I spec'd out wasn't everything he could get. So when it came to, final install day, or who's checking that product because I wasn't ordering it, there were things that weren't there and he couldn't get. So that set the project back because I had to go to my resources, would be Curry and Company, and order all that stuff. So you need to make that very clear as well.
Go ahead.
Sometimes, things.
Can they have a microphone?
Oh.
Sometimes things change as you're getting into a project. I think, for example, you kind of know when you're. Am I on?
I think just
Okay.
closer.
I'm a terrible public speaker, so. Things change. I mean, I think when you go into it, you obviously assume that you're going to do custom cabinetry in a kitchen if you're doing a new build, for example. But I'm working on a project right now that's in Crested Butte, but things shift as you start digging into the design. Working on bathrooms, and initially thought that some of the secondary bathrooms we would be using spec cabinetry for the vanities. And with the tariffs, I thought maybe now custom will be a better option. So then that becomes something that the contractor is ordering, and vice versa. Do you find that it becomes a sticky situation where, oh, you switched to this and now you're taking this profit from me, and vice versa? Things change throughout the design. How does that work?
I think as long as the relationship from the beginning is solid, I know the conversations we've had, I think it goes back to the initial, finding the right contractor that's invested in the project. I want to make that project work overall as a whole, for the client, for you, for me. I want to put out our best product at the end, so when we sign off on this and we go to take professional photos, that everyone's happy with how it came out. So I think if you're in the right relationship, we would understand that shift, and it's a little bit of give and take, I think.
Would you actually go to the step of amending the contract for those warranty issues?
I think that's a change order, absolutely. Yeah. Because first of all, now they're spending more money if you're going to a custom cabinet versus something that was just, stock or spec or whatever, right? So that means that's going to be a change order, and and you're saying the builder would get that if they're ordering, because do you work?
This particular, this is a super complicated situation because it's out of state, it's a second home. So if I'm not ordering a stock vanity rejuvenation and it's custom, the contractor's going to handle.
Okay. Well, that goes, sometimes without saying that it's not always going to be cut and dry, right? Especially when it's a custom home. I know I work...
Or construction in general.
Or construction and any project. There's nothing ever goes smooth, right? So I think I work with a kitchen designer. I am not a kitchen designer, and I don't claim to be. But what my clients and my contract does say is I'm choosing everything that's going to go into that custom project, that custom kitchen. And, that being said, because most of them are custom homes, I'll work with my kitchen designer. I do get a commission off of that, but I can be there. I'm there through the whole process. However, she's doing all the details and she's handling all of it, and it's on her for warranty and anything that was damaged, like some of the upper cabinet doors, glass doors, because it was on the ocean. Somehow it warped. The heat wasn't nothing was hooked up yet like it was supposed to be. So there were some issues with the cabinets. And the company basically handled it. So that's what's nice about, you can put in your contract your design fees and how that works. And also, are you handling the custom bathroom and custom kitchen? And you need to make your contractor aware of that. But who's doing the installation? Because lots of times, the contractor is doing the installation, not the kitchen company, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where, sitting here listening to that, if you ordered the cabinets and then you're asking me to install them, part of, as we all know, like the margin, there's a little bit of protection there for all of us. So if I order a $70,000 kitchen and we ding a cabinet, yeah, we're going to eat it, someone's going to warranty it, and we can absorb some of that cost. If you hand me $70,000 in kitchen cabinets and one of my guys accidentally dings it, then we just have to write a check for a damaged cabinet that we made no money on. So we're not super excited about having to do that in reality, and you wouldn't be either. So that's where I think some of this, who is responsible for these things, and if you are the one responsible, then you probably should be making the margin on it.
Can you just speak a little bit to that in terms of how you both suggest we navigate that? Because, so if I want to hone in on kitchen design, I know that my profit is going to come from cabinets, right? I think that's where I'm going to get the most profit. But I would understand from a builder's or a construction point of view, that's where you want to make your money too. So how do we navigate that with you?
Well, I think in the beginning, this is how I've approached that question, your question, with not only Chris, other builders that I've worked with. And that comes in the interview process for me, because I know, being in the industry for many years, I know my product, I know if I'm doing custom, I know what the markup would be, and I know that that's part of my salary, we'll say, right? So I will ask the contractor, will you work with product that I want to order all the product? I want to take control of that. You need to find a contractor that's going to agree to that. And also, however, how is it getting delivered to the job site? So if you're taking control of all that and he agrees to it, so is it just an unsaid, understanding that his guys are going to be there to meet the truck to unload the tile? Or do I need to hire someone else to do that? So there's also, another question that comes with ordering product. Like with the kitchen cabinets, they get delivered, that's fine. If the contractors are there and you're under contract with them to install it, that's great. But who's going to inspect all that? So are you going to inspect it? That's what we were talking about with product. Like, who inspects the product? If you're ordering it, they don't know, well, we get into FF&E again, what is coming, what are the specifications for each product. I mean, there's a responsibility there. But in your contract, I would say, I am, as the designer, such and such, will be ordering, procuring, sourcing, this, that, and the other thing, and make it clear. And copy your contractor on it, so are they on board with that? We've had an open conversation about that. And some things Chris has ordered as well that I don't want to take charge of,
Are you getting pushback from a Chris that you're ordering cabinets?
I have not. I never get pushback from Chris anyway.
Are you supplying the cabinets? Like you buy them at wholesale and then you put your markup on them and then you make your money there. So we'll get into pre-construction like right now about that. I would be totally fine with that because I would have a contract with my homeowner and I would have gotten a price from you for those cabinets and I would carry it as a line item and I would probably mark it up again if I have to touch them. If I'm taking delivery, that's a conversation between you and I. Am I showing up with a crew to unload the truck? Am I handling them into the house? Am I unpackaging them? Like, I'm going to carry a line for that. I might have a labor line per box or whatever that is. So yes, I think both things can happen.
Hold on that note, now that would you recommend to have the actual contractor do that?
So,
Because it gets a little sticky.
Well, that's when we're going to get into all of that, and that's where a lot of the either understanding or miscommunication happens. So we'll answer that question for you here. So does everyone use an FF&E schedule, or what do you call it?
Design deck.
Design deck when you're working on a construction project. Okay, so if you're familiar with an FF&E, or if you're not familiar with that, that's where you're going to put in everything that you, the designer, spec'd from the construction drawings, the room number, what the project is, what the room number of the home, the name of it, it might be bathroom 2, just say for example. Then they'll say, what's the finish? So it'll say that, you're going to specify that. Is it going to be tile on the floor? Is it going to be, 4-6-inch baseboard on the floor? So all of that, are you picking out all of the millwork? So all of that, all the specifications are going to be on this FF&E schedule. So if I picked out hand-painted marble tile for the bathroom, I can put the specifications in here for that, the size of it, but also put the link to that product. So it's the responsibility, every contractor will get a copy of this, for them to look and see, what am I installing and what is the prep work going to be? Because for me, my responsibility is not the prep work, although I might know what it is, but my responsibility isn't that. Have I ordered all of this stuff? Yes. Has it gotten delivered? Yes. I want to be there when it gets delivered just because I'm, a control freak and I want to look at the boxes, or if something's damaged when it comes in. But all of that stuff for everything, even the paint colors go on this. The trim colors go on this, the numbers of the paint, the brand of the paint, everything, all the specifications for the whole home is going on to this FF&E schedule. For us, it's an Excel document that everyone can access that's on the project, and then they can see, even the electrician. Or you saw the plumbing fixtures. All the plumbing fixtures had a link to a document that gave them all the information, all the specifications for installation as well. So, did I answer your question?
So I can help with the other side of that. Part of this finding a builder in the other slide was find a builder with a process. So you will start to see it more, and it's happening more we are educating our peers, and we're using it more on the builder side as pre-construction. So in pre-con, it allows us to give clients a very, almost to the penny, cost on their project. Some people are still using cost plus, and you can still do a very thorough pre-con and use cost plus, or you can do a very thorough pre-construction agreement and do a fixed cost pricing. This schedule is invaluable to me budgeting. This is one of the best reasons for working with an interior designer, in my opinion, is all those selections are made. I don't have to think about any of that. It's execution for us. I can take each one of these line items, I can plug them into my project management software, I can click on the hyperlink, I can see exactly what fixture that is, exactly how much it costs. I know we need 7 of them for the vanity, I know we need 11 of them for this, and then we put that into our schedule, and then that starts to populate my pricing. So if you gave me your kitchen cost, I can line item that in there, kitchen provided by whatever, whoever. And then if I choose to put a margin on that, I can. Your contract is separate with the client than it is with me, but technically we should be working together on this anyway. So I want you to make money just like you're a plumber or an electrician. You should all make your own margin, and then it's up to me to sell my margin. That's my job, and then do the install. But contractors are crazy to not want this information. And that's where so much value in this room.
I think that's the biggest struggle that I have with working with contractors is the communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to provide all this, but a lot of times I feel like they're holding on to this bigger than themselves idea that the designer doesn't know what they're talking about, and I'll just
Ego.
take it as I go.
Yeah.
But how do you get that communication really solidified, and when? And how do you determine which times and points in the project, that you
Yeah.
to really pull on them because they get busy and they're doing other projects.
So you answer that first.
How did that relationship start with the builder? Are you brought in? Are you guys trying to build something together, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's, he brought me in on a few projects, and then I finally was able to bring him in on one.
Yeah.
The ones that he brought me in, he's a little less communicative on, and the one that I brought him on, he's a little bit more responsive. But yeah, this is my biggest struggle, because if we communicate, we'll have a successful project. Yeah,
He's got to want the end result. We called it buy-in. Like, he has to understand the why and want to do it. And if they're not seeing the vision or appreciating what you're bringing to the table, there's probably a little bit of a disconnect there. Because I want it to, when we get to a render, I want it to look like the render.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's the best to take something from render to actual and be able to photograph it and showcase it as your own. That's what we're trying to do.
So in some projects we've had weekly or bi-weekly Zoom calls. So I know some contractors don't have the time to do that. They're up early in the morning. If Chris is texting me or calling me at 6 a.m., we both know we both get up early. But it's either site meetings. I do have site meetings, scheduled site meetings. So it's a conversation, I think, that's very important to have, and to have a schedule, for certain things, especially when there's installs for certain things, that to be there. Yeah.
Well, you might be getting into it now, but I'm just curious. You had mentioned something about when you're speccing things, whose responsibility do you think it is? I always thought it was the designer's responsibility when I'm working on a project to say, oh, this requires a smaller junction box that I have to flag that to my GC, or say, this requires more blocking because it weighs 80 pounds.
Well, he should know that, because if he's looked at the FF&E, he should have seen the specification. So I don't think it's your responsibility to do that. I don't do that. I want them to know ahead of time and that's why the spec sheet goes, or the tear sheet and the spec sheet, the installation sheet goes into, we're going to talk about the software, so they can see, and that's what I've done with Chris, is I've provided pictures, the spec sheet, the installation.
Yeah, the light fixtures on the stone, for example.
Yes.
Basically gave me the sheet, and we knew they were going to go on stone. So I had to think about, she has these large rectangular shaped wall sconces that aren't going to sit flat on a round stone finish. So how are we going to work around making this look flat? And we ended up mocking up a jig that we put on the wall before the stone went up. And then we ended up making finished ones the exact size as the rectangular box, painted them black, and now you don't even know they're there, and the light fixtures sit flat.
That was brilliant.
I think
so. If you can get a contractor like him, that works. That was brilliant. Yeah.
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 But I think that goes back to just I wanted it to be a good finished product. So how do we make it?
Yeah, you have to find a good fit with your contractor. And I know we're all brought into jobs that even the clients have their own contractors. That's one of the first questions I ask when I get a call and they tell me what they want to do. It's on my client profile form. Do they want to use their own contractors? Do they have their own painter? That's very important, a very important question to ask. Because you might know who that contractor is already and you're like, great. I don't have to bring my contractors in, but I want to know who I'm working with, and I want to meet them. So if I give them paint colors and it's a smaller project and I'm going there, I want to meet the painter. But I don't want the painter telling them that they can't do the paint colors or the finish that I specified. That's a whole nother issue. So, right?
Yeah. There was a small tangent to telling them about blocking and some other things. What I was going to say is, it sounds like you are a great, asset to that builder, and that's super helpful. And that is one of the pieces that we talked about is, who's checking in, on some projects if we have 100 different knobs and pulls and towel bars, and who's making sure that all got came in, because I've definitely tripped over projects where I get the FF&E, it comes to me, I give it to my plumber, that goes to FW Web, to the salesperson, that comes back, and then when we get to the project and it's time to install, we're short a towel bar, we're short a towel, a roll pull or something. It's like, okay, who was
A
responsible
rough
for checking?
valve. That
Yeah,
the
a rough
wall's
end
already
valve.
been-
Who's responsible for checking those things? I think it's a great asset and value add if you are part of the team and it is your project also. It might be worth going on the day that all that stuff is arriving and marking it off like, yes, I spec'd 2 towel bars and these roll hooks and this toilet paper holder right on them, bath 1, bath 2, bath 4. Because we could use a little bit of assistance. I'm not asking you to do my job for me, but if we are working together and it's a little give and take, I will figure out how to solve this other problem. If somebody can make sure that the correct colored floor runner came in, all the tiles correct. Because sometimes I'm not there for the selection with the client, and if a tile shows up that's the wrong hue of yellow, and you're like, no, we didn't spec this, I wouldn't know that.
Right.
So I would appreciate, you coming in and making sure that what you selected is what we got before it's too late for install.
Right. I always have a Sharpie marker. I have one in my bag now. I don't know why. Maybe to color the scuff on my black shoe. But I always have a Sharpie marker. And when I know that the product is getting delivered, I'll go to the site and I will specifically go for 6 bathrooms. I'm going to use this as an example. Go through, open up each box, and don't rely on the label that's outside on the box. I open it up and I have my my sheets from, say, FW Web with the pictures and everything on it, specifications, so I know that it's in the box. And then I will group them together per room. So, I don't think the contractors on that project were not used to that at all. But I wanted to make sure for my client that these things weren't getting installed in the wrong bathroom. And then, this is the other thing. So can we go back to the other slide? The redlining the plans is very important because you can write your changes on here. You can send it, whoever who's making the changes, it might be the architect, on the construction drawings. But if you've changed things around and it's not relayed properly to the right people, it's going to create more change orders. It's going to increase the cost of a project. So it's very important if you have, like the towel bars, you're going to need blocking behind the walls, right? So those things, that's all in the framing part of it. Your toilets, are they the electric Toto toilets and all that stuff? For the electrician needs all that stuff. So these changes need to be made and they need to be relayed. And if you're all working on live documents, that's great. A lot of contractors won't look at them. So it's very important to relay the message for whoever is making the changes that are on your construction drawings as well. And so when you do that, when you show them all the product, you put it in the FF&E, I still do somewhat of just a mood board or elevation and tell them exactly where I want things. So you don't want to rely on them to do just the regular, it's supposed to go 3 feet up off the floor. But if your tile, how deep is your tile? How high is your tile on the shower floor? That's all going to make a difference. So I specifically either will have someone do the elevations for me, and I will give them the heights and the measurements of what I want where, and this just gives them a visual. And I might be a little, I don't want to say anal, but I will print this out and I will tape it to the wall in the room. Most of the time, the contractors take it down, but I will have it there. I will also have a binder with everything in it, all the product, the specifications, our hard copy. I know no one wants to carry that stuff around, but I always have it on the job site so they can look at that as well. So that's very important.
Yeah, without dumbing down the construction industry, we do like pictures. So this is very helpful for my guys in the field to be able to look at it and see what's happening and know, because if this doesn't have any information on it, I'm going to get the phone call, that's going to slow up, I'm going to call her for the information, can't get in touch with, everything gets delayed. If this just exists, then you can basically, I may still call and ask and be like, hey, go look in the thing, dummy. And it's like, okay, right, it's in the, it's in the schedule, or it's on in the software, which we're going to get into in a minute with, you posting this up and people taking it down. Now we can put QR codes up or something else, which we'll
Right.
get into.
Right. So then you have the final product, from all of that work and preparation, then you have, a magazine-worthy photo, right, for your portfolio, or everyone knows, what's going where. So don't assume the contractor knows. You need to lay out everything. The tile layout is very important. Placement of plumbing fixtures, they're just going to put it wherever their normal height is for the shower head. But they don't know, okay, I have a rain shower head, and I have a wall mount shower head, and I have a handheld, and, my client's lefty or my client's righty, and they're just, if you're not there and you don't tell them, they're just going to put them, it's the same thing with lighting, right? Dining room lighting, do they ever center it in the window? Do they ever center it in the room? No. So you need to be there. Lay out the niches and towel bars for all the blocking, and, provide a detailed FF&E or whatever you want to call it. It's very important that there's open communication with product.
I just had a renovation that we wrapped up a few months ago back, and we had 3D render, we had all the selections in tile, and to your point of like being very specific, the back shower wall, we had 3 different tiles in that shower, and the back wall had some glass vertically oriented tiles, and I didn't catch that it wrapped on both the wet wall and the back wall, just 3 inches in on the corners. So when I measured for the tile, I just measured the back wet wall and didn't pick up the fact that we needed another total 6 inches by 8 feet of additional glass tile that wrapped that corner. So when we go to install, naturally, and now I'm short that tile, and I didn't catch it. So that was a small detail that, had it been very clearly communicated, that we would have caught earlier. So even with an FF&E and 3D drawing, sometimes if you know that that's a unique detail that you're trying to put in there, please give us a heads up. That's just like a small piece that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's a whole bunch of software out there. I did a quick render on Chief Architect. I know some other people are using 2020. The other project management software we use is Builder Trend, and you'll see some more of that. But that's basically a rough sketch before the architect I was working with didn't do a 3D render for the client on the interior. They live in Florida primarily, and we work at their second homes in New Hampshire. So it was a lot easier for me to kind of spin this up and send it out, and then we ended up making some other changes, but this became basically the final on that. We had to build some custom cabinets for those doors, which I think somehow she might have found down here previous to the project, which is interesting. Which I didn't know until I got here. I'm like,
She's not a designer, right? She's not a designer.
And that was basically the turquoise bar sitting on that, end up being this. So project management software, like I said, we use Builder Trend. There's other softwares out there, JobTread. And that's mostly builder software. But with having a process and with having this, our clients have a portal that they can get into, and this isn't to push their product, but it's super helpful. You can see where, Debbie gave me files on a light fixture or some other piece, and all that gets loaded in.
Yeah, this is a great communication tool, because everything gets loaded into Builder Trend, and even just say I'm the client, I can communicate with Chris. So you're not texting or you're not emailing. Everything lives here, and what he can do also is he can delegate certain projects to his contractor, so his electrician, his project. If I put a to-do list in there, which was great, that was great, and then I can see when the plumber, electrician checks it off and it says completed, completed, completed. So I don't have to keep going and hounding and back and forth like I'm used to doing with other people.
And we
But
could link you in also. You could have your own access to that. So if you can find a builder that's actively using a software, and if you're really trying to partner up, ask them to get you a login to that project. They'll make you a user, and then any files that get uploaded, actually you'd have access to load your own at that point too.
right, and
But yeah, the to-do lists are great, and I can tag any one of my guys or the electrician or the plumber to, hey, this is your job, and they have to check it off when they're done. This was your render from Jewett Farm.
Jewett
for
Farms
your kitchen.
Kitchens, yeah. So that was great. So this is just a little, exercise for you. So, Chris, you can. talk
Yeah, so
about
this is when we were talking about QR codes. So any file that I load into Buildertrend now, we can print out a QR code. I can stick it up in the kitchen. I can stick it up in the bathroom. These are live. If you want to try one, you can. They're both from, that's the kitchen plans, and that was, I think, just the set, the architect set from SKA. We can. Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we didn't think about it, but yeah, we could. If we-
So any, the kitchen can go up there, the bathroom can go in there, anything you want to post up on the wall, you could laminate them, but the guys, it takes a little bit of training, but they can literally walk into that bathroom and want to understand what's going on, QR code it with their phone or the iPad and have a live link to that file or the image, which...
Right.
This is one of the document sections in Buildertrend, and it gets longer, but all your designs and selections can go in there. I use it for contracts. I use it for bids and quotes from my other vendors as well. This is kind of a quick, messaging screen where it's basically a built-in email.
Yeah, the communication going back and forth. And what I don't know about other builders, but Chris will, if I put a message in there, I know he's going to respond quicker to me. Not that he doesn't, because he's very good with responding to messages, but once you get the hang of using a software that your builder is using, it's like I'm obsessed with it. So I could be on my phone at night. I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell him this. I don't want to interrupt him. It's late at night. I'm going to throw it in there so I know he's going to respond in the morning. So the messaging and communication for this particular software I thought was great. I loved the checklist, the to-do list, and then, I saw, oh, Mark checked off, the Corbels were installed. Or also, if I'm there with one of his guys and we're talking about something and they'll bring it up and they'll say, oh, but on Buildertrend, it says it's supposed to be here. I'm like, oh, but I made a little change. So it's great that they can access this software while they're on the job site, because they can log in and see what they're supposed to be doing, specifications for lighting installs, plumbing, and all that.
The to-do list you were talking about, and then the guys will just, click on complete when done. So then this goes back to the start of the buy-in and the relationship in the team. Are you mutually marketing each other? Are you trying to see each other's businesses grow? Or is this a one-off where you're just kind of stuck working with this contractor, or did you have to pull in somebody to work with you that just
Right.
felt a little bit
Yeah, I mean,
off?
it's funny, so when Chris and I first met, when he came to the house that we wanted him to work on, and I thought I would never get a contractor to work on that house because it was not pretty, and I knew that it was a lot of work. All the plumbing was in the ceiling, exposed in the kitchen. So that was just one thing. But when we started talking, and I did research him ahead of time, so Instagram is great. Google, you find out, who this person is. Are they on Facebook? Where some older contractors will be on Facebook. Some may not be on Instagram. But it's like I think you did the same thing with me. You know, we researched each other, and we found, like, I think before we left, we started to follow each other on Instagram, which, you know, is great if you do that and you promote your business on that and you put your projects on that. That's also going to attract, you know, other people to want to work with you. So that, you know, I think our visions aligned just in the marketing sense of our business as well, and also with team recognition. You know, we just had the awards dinner for the Parade of Homes, but, you know, the architects that we worked with were there. Chris was there, and even if you looked throughout the room, everyone's team was there. And it's not always about just you and your project. It's about the whole team collaborating. Because if they're excited about the project, then you're going to, in the end, you know, have a great product to deliver to your client.
Yeah, 100%. I've you know, appreciated your vision from the beginning, and yes, I like to be a problem solver and I like a challenge, so your project was all of those things.
Yeah.
But I really did like where it was going to go, and I knew it would be, you know, great for us as well to showcase that product.
Yeah.
So I think people, you know, when things get difficult or you're starting to feel like they're difficult, you might just have to have a conversation like any other relationship and ask her, like, are you fully invested in this? Is this a project that you're going to get behind and you're happy with? And if not, you know, what isn't working, right?
So I have a question on
Yeah.
specifically that. So with our design firm, we have a couple of contractors that we go to, and there's this like the go-to person.
Yeah.
Very reliable with the outcome of what the project's, when the project is complete, but unreliable on time because
Sure.
they are always splitting their work amongst multiple interior designers, right?
Yep.
What, from your perspective, what incentivizes you to come and be loyal to my project, even though you know you have multiple projects you're working on?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How many are on the team, I guess? You know,
Well-
do you have people that can, does he have other people? Not to take that away from you, Chris, but,
That's the thing, sometimes, you know, he'll send his person who's supposed to show up at 9 but shows up at 11, then okay, he'll show up at 12 when he said he should be there at 10, right? And I think it's just because he gets pulled into different projects.
Absolutely. How do you how do you become priority? Yeah.
Become priority and incentivize him to see you as priority.
I mean, I'm not going to say it all comes down to money, but a lot of us are spread thin across multiple projects. Like we run about 5 projects simultaneously. So there is some give and take. I mean, we had some with, you know, your job where
Yeah.
we need to speed things up, and that is on the builder to figure out how to pull from somewhere else to pick up the pace on the other one. I feel like I expect some priority from my trades as well. The problem is I don't own all them and I can't control their schedules. So yes, I think where I leverage my plumber or some other trade is like, look, I give you $250,000 a year in work. If I ask you to show up on Monday, please show up on Monday. But they may say, hey, sorry, like I'm already booked for X or something. There is a lot of juggling and push and pull, but for the contractor not having all the trades in-house. And some of, you know, one of the reasons I pulled electrical in-house is because it was hard to navigate scheduling. That is the hardest part. And us not owning the subs or trade partners' schedules, I think, is where we get, you know, find the most difficulty, but in the end, it is my fault. You know, I am the GC and it falls in my lap. Do you feel like you give them a lot of projects, like to the point where you should be priority?
I think so, but that's from our perspective we do.
Yeah.
But then again, it's what incentivizes them on the other side, right? So it sounds like it's a problem for.
Oh yeah.
I think it's every project. There's no dream project where you're not going to have a delay in something, or they're on another project, or you know there's always a fire somewhere else that has to be put out. So I think it comes down to you can't control your contractor or your subs. I mean, you get more, you know, what's the saying? You get something bees with honey or whatever. I don't know how that saying goes. But you know, it's It's communication, but again, you don't know what they have on their plate, so it's also ask those questions. Like, if I want to start this project when, that's always something I always ask. Is it doable? You know, I had someone the other day, a new client, emailed me, a potential client, and she says, you know, we want to start in March of 2026 and be done in June of 2026. So we had a conversation. I was like, how realistic are your goals as far as your completion date? Because that's not going to happen. And if you want to, renovate the whole first floor and tear the kitchen out and make a new dining room, take the wall down, put columns up, and we need a structural engineer, all of that takes time. And you need to start working on that project now because there's a lot of prep work, right? So you don't know. If I want Chris to work on that job, I don't know what he's already got scheduled out, so you need to have that conversation to say, how full is their plate right now? And some who want to continue to get that work because they want to keep their guys busy, but then, there could be a delay, right? In beams, it could be a delay in product, it could, yeah. So, the 5, any more questions? We can take more questions after this, yes.
How do you temper your customers' expectations then? So say the EPC says, it will be 8 weeks for the project. Do you always tell your customers 10 weeks, 12 weeks?
Yeah, everyone wants to know when their project's going to be done, right? So that it depends on the scope of work. And what I do tell them is we never know what we're going to find out when you start opening up walls, right? So you never know that you have rotten joists or things, more work has to happen, change orders have to happen. So that's just for instance, another big project, client's been mine for 10 years, and every year we do a project in their house. We've taken a year, pulling up marble in the foyer and laying down 24 by 24 inch marble, but it's a 1990 mini mansion, and because it's settled, the floor from the dining room across the foyer to the living room there was an inch difference. So you can't put that floor down because it's going to crack. So how long is it going to take now to fix that or go in the basement and try to raise the joist or level that? That's a lot of leveling that has to be done. So those are the things that you don't find out until you start, right? So I think the best question is, do you have any events coming up? A wedding, a shower, a birthday party, anything you're going to want this project done for? That's how I approach it. And I can say, same thing, same client, put this project on hold during COVID, right? And after COVID, all of the building materials, the cost went up, skyrocketed. Freight skyrocketed. He's in the finance industry. He's like, I see this, Deb. He's like, I'm going to put the project on hold until we're ready to do it because I'm not paying all these prices. I'm going to wait till they come down. I'm like, okay. So my contractor was ready to go, couldn't do it. So they're not going to wait. The guys aren't going to want to wait. They need to work. They're going to take on another project, right? So, okay, January comes, he's like, okay, we're ready. We're going to start now. I'm like, no, we're not starting now. The contractor's on another job, so we can't start until May, And he's like, I know, it's my fault, blah, blah, blah. But you need to really have that real conversation with them about what happens when you start to do a demo or a renovation.
I can add to that. I think you should lean on your contractor. They're the ones doing the install. So they should be communicating early and often on delays, and if they have a schedule, they should be able to show a change, basically, put out a message or show, hey, we tripped over this is going to delay us 5 days, and then it should add the 5 days on to the end of the schedule, and it will adjust what's next. Most of the feedback from any clients, and it can come down to pricing too. You do a post-interview with a project and say, hey, any feedback on what went well, what didn't go well? Oh, it was great. I just didn't realize it was going to cost this much. It's like, okay, well, that falls on me then, because I should have given you this live updates budgets. So if we went under contract at $1 million and we bumped into some things that took longer, cost more money, there should have been a change order that should have showed the new total. And I see builders still do it. They'll stack change orders to the end of the project, and then they send them $250,000 in change orders, and they're like, wait a minute, how'd we get to 1.25? If you had just done it as you were going, then they don't have that question. They knew it was coming because they saw it live. And so I think I would lean on the contractor to communicate delays quickly, and then the client would know that, hey, we're 4 days behind, now we're a week behind, now we're 2 weeks behind, with some explanation. But yes, to your point with holidays, those are huge pieces to know, like, we need to be in by Christmas. I may back and say, let's do a January 3 start, because I know we're not going to hit that. It's an unrealistic goal, and I don't want to miss. Go ahead.
Are you relying on the client to look at bills or trend to know what those change order fees are, or are you verbally also communicating?
They get an email as soon as I send one, and they have to digitally hit approve. So they had to read it and then click on it says approve, and then I have two options. I can bill them for the change order. Some contracts have like change orders are paid immediately, or it'll just roll to the total and it'll just work itself off at the end.
Does that email come through your
Yes,
entry
through the app. Yeah.
But normally you would have a conversation about that first. Is that what you're asking? Like, you would have a conversation about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't just cold send out.
Yeah.
I would probably, I'm pretty communicative with some things. We're doing a small project and the guys trip over rot. The guys will immediately send me a photo, and I will probably either load it in there or text the client, say, hey, we just ran into rot. I will follow up with you in another day when I know more, and then say, hey, this is a problem. We're going to have to tear off, 8 feet of the house unexpected. I will get a total for you here shortly.
Oh, you run out of water in your well and you have to drill a new well.
That wasn't mine. Any other questions?
So my husband's a GC, so I see it from, I can approach from a different angle. He's worked with a lot of designers over the years, and I would say try to present a united front with the client as much as you can. So like you mentioned, like the neck in the cabinet or whatever, the client doesn't need to know every little thing that goes on. You don't have to tell them. That's not how you establish your own credibility as a designer, by throwing the contract in the front.
No, totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think, we don't do that.
No, and I think that's
But
part of
I
going
think
to the client together versus if you are working for the client directly, you may lean to say, hey, the contractor dropped the ball on this wasn't my fault. Like the pointing fingers thing isn't going to help anybody. I'm in a situation right now, same thing, where I don't love some of the things that have been decided, but I'm not going to run back to the homeowner and be like, yeah, this is terrible. I'm not excited about having to take pictures of it, but and I might not. I've had a couple like that, but I will too small of a community and too small of an area to and who knows, I just may not work with them again, or I think it will come out on its own, and then we can kind of figure it out from there, but not one to,
I also think, we talked about this, maybe we didn't touch on it enough, is your contractors that are in the house when you're not there, and they're starting to talk to your client, and they're trying to, the client starts to second guess the light fixture, they're second guessing the paint color, or, he's got too much going on, so this isn't going to, close out when you think it's going to close out. And the conversations that happen, and they come back to you, and you're absolutely right. Don't ever throw your contractor under the bus. And you also need to have that open communication and explain why certain things have happened. Why was that paint color chosen? Why was that cabinet, that kind of wood chosen? How about the wood floor? The installer says, this wood floor is crap. It's not going to last, blah, blah, blah. Why did you choose that? But always educate your client on the product so they know what to expect. And they're going to they don't know. They just don't know, especially new clients that are in a new reno, they've never done it before. So they don't know how it's going to go. And let's face it, subs talk. And sometimes it's not flattering as well, but it's up to you to have a little class and a little grace and kind of reassure them that, you're working together as a partnership. I'm not going to throw Chris under the bus, even if he's done something or made a decision that I'm not happy with, I mean, we'll have a conversation.
Sure.
Or I've done something or ordered something I shouldn't order because it's not right, it shouldn't go there. We'll have that conversation, but we won't throw each other under the bus. So that's a very good
Yeah.
point. Thank you.
It's also on me to manage my trades. I have to sell to them as well. Some of it's hard work, some of it's gross, some of it they don't want to do. And it's up to me to kind of get them on the same page. Like, hey, look, you might not love this, and this might not be what you want to do, but here's why. And then it's, I kind of do the sales to build them back up so that they're like, all right, let's go, we can do this. If you just let them run rampant, they'll just complain about every little piece of it.
Any other questions? Yes.
What is your suggestion when you are in a situation where the contractor and the trades are doing substandard work?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's tough because it is your product. Did you go in with the contractor together, or are you in with the homeowner? You did? How did you, Did you know, like, you've seen previous work and you expect it to be better and they're just not doing it? Yeah.
They just said, well, you rushed us. You want it done, or you want it done?
Oh, yeah. But the Venn diagram, fast and cheap, or cheap and fast, you can't have all three. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be a tough one to sit down and just, what I've said to most of my guys is like, would you take a picture of this and put it on Instagram as your work? Take a picture of this and tag it with your company name on there. Would you do it? And I just hold their feet to the fire on that.
Do you always recommend a full contractor for jobs or hiring your own
Depends.
I'm not going to, I'll be honest, I'm not going to bring Chris 2 hours away for a job, because then he has to do all the logistics with his guys, unless it's a huge job. If I have, a bathroom remodel that, I do have other subs that I work with, but it depends on what the project is. Would I like to work with him all the time? Absolutely. But is it going to be feasible for him, to pull his guys off, a job? He would. We've already talked about this. But it depends on what the job is, and it has to be worth it for everyone, right? So you need to have, I think, subs. I have, my own painter, my own tile installer, my own contractor that I've been working with for years and other projects from Boston, up to southern New Hampshire. And they'll walk across water for me because I can keep them busy. And, you have to praise them. You have to make them part of your team. So they're part of my team, although, if I'm working with Chris in the Lakes region, or maybe he will come, 2 hours away if the project is worth it.
Yeah.
It all depends. I would love to work with him all the time. But he has clients too, like that one that was coming into the showroom that you said they don't have a designer and they want to look at selections.
Mm-hmm.
So, are they going to want to put the money into a designer where I could work with him on all his projects? Does that make sense?
Do you enjoy the management piece of those smaller ones?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
In order to get specific timeframes and
Yeah.
go through with that. But
I think that's where sometimes we have the leverage of, we provide enough work. I hear it where I'm at. I'll walk into a client's house and I haven't been able to get somebody to check on my AC. I've called 5 people. I'm like, oh, okay, hold on a minute. And I just call
he
my
does that all the
HVAC guy.
time. Yeah.
And then, Rob, hey, this person's AC isn't working. All right, I'll be there in 2 hours. And they're like, what the heck?
Yeah, he'll
I'm like,
do that.
I give that, I provide them so much work, and they know they're going to get paid. They know it's a real job. They don't have, a lot of them don't want to go direct to the client. I make their life a lot easier. Mm-hmm. So if you enjoy doing that, great. If you could find someone to take the smaller projects. I know a lot of, as people get bigger, they end up with contract minimums. But yeah, I think it comes down to whether or not you want to handle that and what the end outcome would be.
You mentioned early on meeting with clients and seeing red flags. I know no one's perfect. You're going to end up with clients that you maybe should have seen a red flag, but do you have like a list of questions in your questionnaire? How do you find the red flags or see them?
So, Chris, I'm just going to, you know who I'm talking about. Yes. So, we had an instance, but it was a meeting. It was at a meeting. And it was, for me, a first initial meeting. It was one of your past clients.
Yeah.
Found me on Instagram through, I was tagging him, went to my website, sent a contact page in, talked to her on the phone, blah, blah, blah. I said, there's an initial cost for me to come out. She's like, well, I don't think you understand the scope of work. I said, okay. So I go, I'm like, okay. So I know she's worked with you before. I went out there. I was there for 3.5 hours. And I didn't charge her for my initial because I didn't understand the scope of work. So then she's like, well, when is Chris coming out? I said, well, I need to chat with Chris first. And when can we get this done? Blah, blah, blah. I called you. Like, we did have another meeting with her and her husband, and that was the last meeting.
Yeah. I think, for me, I don't always have a list of questions. It is a little bit of a feel, and you do start to hear things that just, it's like a spidey sense, where they make a comment around, oh, I really enjoy, like, when I go to the car dealership and, like, I can get the best deal from somebody, and, like, you start to feel like, oh, this person might be a little bit of a grinder, or this person might not value, you know, what you do, or if there's like, oh, I used to be super handy and I could probably do this myself, but, like, they're going to micromanage you, they're going to, so there's certain things, you know, that situation, the husband and wife were arguing the whole time over how it was going to be done. I basically felt like a therapist during the whole meeting. And when I was talking about how I would install something or do the flooring because there was a potential for phase 2, I'm like, oh, I'll do a break here because otherwise I'm going to tear all this back out. And then they were basically telling me how to do it. I was just like, all right, this is going to be a mess, and I don't really.
And then he left me there by myself.
Yeah. And then they didn't pay. Like, you did end up sending them an invoice.
I did, and I sent them. I just needed to close that out because I just couldn't leave it hanging. So I sent an invoice, and I also sent an email to him and her. I also did some work already with Jewett Farms and you know, just pre-design stuff. You know, 40 years of in the industry, you think you know everything and you think you're never going to get burnt again. So, and this was just this summer.
Yeah.
And you know, I sent an email. I said, I need to know if we're moving forward with the project because I have another client that wants to get on my schedule. So I'm just trying to see where we're at with the meetings and blah, blah, blah. That afternoon, I got a call from the husband. He said, you know, I'm just calling to give you the courtesy to let you know that, you know, I can get my, he was a dentist, orthodontist, I can get my commercial contractor to, you know, come and do all this stuff. No one's calling us back and no one's doing this. I'm like, Chris is like, I know why no one's calling them back. Like, their name is out there, like, do not work with these people. But he said to me, you know, so we still haven't decided, but we'll let you know when we can use you. I'm like, well, I wish you the best of luck on your project. And then the next morning at 7 o'clock, the wife texts me crying. She called, can you talk? She's like, I thought I found my best friend and my designer. And I was like, I have 10 minutes to talk. That's what she said to me. I was like, oh my God, this is like Single White Female. You know that movie? So then she's like, I talked to her on the phone, and she says, I walked into the conversation with you and Mike, and oh my gosh, what was he saying? What went on? I'm like, you're married. Don't you think you talk to each other? I'm not that stupid. Yeah. Anyway, I said, well, quite honestly, she says, well, you guys always just work together. I said, we don't work together. We are separate. You know, but just because we meet each other on a project and we walk through, she says, well, you know, you're still not off the table, and I don't know about Chris. And I'm like, I know that we talked, and we know that we are not on the table. Yeah. Like, it's just too much drama. Like, when you can sense drama and you can sense that, like Chris said, you're going to be a therapist there in an initial meeting, is it worth it for you? Because maybe I know we get slow, right? Because our businesses go like this. We could be up here and rolling in the dough, and then we're down here, we're like, oh my God, where's my next job coming from? So we take that job just because, and it's not worth it because they'll end up costing you money in the end. So that's kind of, I thought she would actually show up at the parade of homes, but she didn't. But, I mean, it happens all the time, no matter how seasoned you are.
Yeah, and then time, your time, your budget, if things just don't track, then, yeah, I just like, yeah, this doesn't work. And it is hard to say no. It is like, just having a bad first date. And I will use that. So I'm like, oh, we're on our first date. I just want to see if this is going to work.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, yeah, this was great. I'd love to have this conversation again. And then you can move on to the next steps, or you just don't.
You have a question?
You say we're flooded with other jobs, do you overbid?
Well, you could overbid, but what if they pay because no one else wants to work with them? So then you're stuck with that. And not only that, that creates anxiety, right? I would say, my schedule's really full right now. I'm going to be doing more traveling, so I really can take on your project, as I thought I could in the beginning. Just close it out, It's not.
Try to use the schedule as much as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it. I have a hard time being direct on how to say, yeah, I just don't like you, because that's what it comes down to, kind of.
It's true, but anyone else? Yes. How do I charge? I charge initially to go out. So I do a minimum of a 2-hour initial meeting, consultation. I'll walk through the project, and then I go back and they'll say, what's the next steps? I take all my notes. I'll put it in an agreement. I will send you a designer agreement. You can look it over, and I do a flat fee. If I'm doing a big project, I do a flat fee. And then I also fluff that a little bit, because I figure out how many hours I'm going to work on that project. I don't do square footage. I know a lot of designers do square footage. For me, I don't grasp the concept of that, because what if we're choosing, Chris and I talked about this, what if we're choosing really high-end product in the end, right? And you're doing square footage, but then you're over budget for what you know what I'm saying? So I'll tell them, if they're going out to buy something themselves, because that's the other thing, like who has control, who has responsibility. If they're buying product themselves, they'll tell me that in the beginning. I'll either say, well, I will make a markup on whatever you choose, because I'm already doing the design boards for that. And if they go to Paragold or they go somewhere else and they're going to find it and source it, and I already put the work into that, I will still charge them the 30% markup on that. And that's in my agreement. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We good? Anyone else? Well, thank you very much. This has been great.
I really appreciate
I hope you learned a lot and enjoyed it. Thank you for coming.